So, Poke Roundtable. Important discussion. Well, important to the people watching, obviously. I decided to tackle this particular topic because it showed up on Twitter. And I found it very interesting that it showed up on Twitter right before I needed to do the roundtable. Because I originally was going to do the roundtable on Go and Koharu's characters. But two things stopped me from doing that. One, the fact that this topic just seemed more interesting. I see it was catching a lot more headway. I see it was getting a lot of retweets. I see things were looking very interesting. So I decided to go ahead, lock down, and, tackle that topic. The second reason I decided to tackle this topic instead of the Go and Koharu one, because I was originally going to talk about them. What's up, Kuro? Because I was originally going to talk about Go and Koharu. That was the next topic. But the reason I decided to postpone it even more was because I thought about it, and I'm like, we want to give the series a bit more chance to go on, and then we could probably make our statement from there. I don't want to wind up making a discussion and then Journeys probably pulls a fast one and decides to make like a bunch of Koharu and Go episodes, and then that makes this basically obsolete. I'm just gonna call you LOL. I'll just call you LO. Yeah, I'll just call you LOL for now, because I guess it's pronounced LOL Dr. XP. That's the only thing I could possibly think of, or LOL Drexp. So I'm just gonna call you LOL to make it easier. But LOL is actually the one responsible for this particular topic too, because he's the original one that posted it. And obviously I'm not trying to put him out, because he asked a very open-ended question, which was why the hate for Greninja. So you can't be for or against it, because he's not on any side. He's just like me when we do these topics and these discussions. He just legitimately wants to know why the hate. So with that being said, the question does bring about that particular topic, and that's what we hit now. Pokemon Journeys isn't over yet, so I decided that this was a better topic because XY, for all intents and purposes, is over. And I figured this was a really good topic to go ahead and just chew over to give us time before we actually tackle back into the other stuff that the anime has to offer. So the question, and we're going to get hop straight into that, is why the hate for... I don't know if it's specifically the hate for Greninja period or just Ash-Greninja, but if we want to start just from all of it and like make sure no stone goes unturned, we're going to talk about it all from Ash and Froakie to Ash-Greninja. So basically, from the moment Froakie shows up to the picture you see right here. And to make sure that we have our facts straight, obviously, I'll be going over pretty much the main bullet points that happened within the series. Everything from in X and Y, because obviously most people know that I reviewed the XY series a while back. So I have a pretty decent knowledge of the entire series from start to finish. And because of that, we can break down exactly what happens story-wise and narrative-wise, and how it led to the eventual, I wouldn't say hatred, because that's a strong word, but like the overall crowd dismemberment and split between the people who adored Ash-Greninja as a character to the people who just downright don't like him, to the people who didn't like him to begin with. Because we hear all the nicknames, Jobber Frog, Deviant Art Frog, Fanfic Frog, blah blah blah. But where does it come from? Like, how did this happen exactly? Like, how did we get here? Is the real question. How do we go from Greninja being this Pokemon everybody likes to the moment it loses one fight, everybody's all like, how did we get here? And honestly, obviously we could jump to that bullet point and just save us the trouble. But in order to make sure that we've got an accurate representation of what's going on, we have to talk about it from the beginning and just go up. So let's get into it. Ash-Greninja, aka at this point in the story, Froakie. From what we remember, or from what we know of the series, Froakie is one of those few Pokemon, like Snivy from Best Wishes, to actually leave the trainers. Because most trainers just wouldn't keep Froakie because of how freaking disobedient it was. But the reason it was disobedient was because it didn't want to deal with any of the weaker trainers. Most of the trainers were weak, and thus Froakie wouldn't really listen to him. Think of him pretty much as like Charmeleon or Charizard, but in Froakie form. Didn't want to deal with them. They were all too incompetent of trainers, which says a lot about Ash, because remember, Ash had Charmeleon and Charizard in Primate, and they wouldn't listen to him. It wasn't until Ash became a better trainer and more competent that these Pokemon wound up seeing him as more of an asset than a liability. So when that ended up happening, we see that what ends up happening is that the first glimpse we see of Froakie is when he spots Ash fighting off against Clement. He views him in a tree and he sees how competent he is with Pikachu. And seeing this allows him to have some interest in Ash as a trainer. Hence why we get Froakie risking his life in order to save Pikachu during the whole situation with Team Rocket. So we see all this crack off at basically episode 1. And then in episode 2, Froakie sits with Ash pretty much the entire way and observes Ash's competence pretty much the entire time. Even in the Battle of Aerial Mobility, Froakie's had this willingness to do the right thing, but he also has to be with the right trainer. He almost has a hero's complex, because in A Battle of Aerial Mobility, the episode 3, Fletchling ends up stealing some food from Bonnie. And what ends up happening after that, because Bonnie was trying to feed Dedenne before they even caught Dedenne. It was her way of trying to befriend Dedenne so that it can join the team later in episode 4. So Fletchling ends up stealing this food, and Bonnie gets upset about it, and Froakie takes it upon himself to become the hero in this situation and fight Fletchling. And Ash commends Froakie for this rash, heroic behavior, the same behavior that Ash used to show off when he was younger. But, younger being in air quotes. But Ash realized that Froakie needs a plan in order to make sure that this is a legitimate way that we can go stop the Fletchling. Ash even makes it an effort to go catch the Fletchling as an icing on the cake to add to his team. And in addition, that Fletchling could probably wind up as a better Pokemon joining their team rather than stealing food from people, which is an overall better decision long term. So the fight starts, and Ash takes advantage of Froakie's ability to make frubbles, and we wind up in one of the best catching a bird Pokemon battles I've ever seen in my life. But this does also complement Ash's ability to become a strategist and a trainer, and someone who generally has good strategy, along with Froakie's willingness to do the right thing. The two make a perfect combo. One Pokemon is strong and has the willingness to do the right thing. The other has done those things before, but also has the bonus of having a right mindset as well as the strategic battle style. The two combined together make an unstoppable force. Hence the Froakie being able to outsmart Fletchling situation. How's it going, Robzo and Aqua Sakura, by the way? So when that ends up happening, we end up seeing the situation where, because of their combined efforts, they're able to successfully capture Fletchling. It's a great combination of skill as well as experience. We see later that Froakie doesn't really get many episodes to himself, but he does play a major role in assistance. We see that in battling on thin ice when Froakie helps train using his frubbles to serve as a sticky web substitute. And he even shows that he has a good head on his shoulders when Fletchling introduces itself to Froakie, and Froakie, like, slaps his shoulder as camaraderie, but it's too much. So Fletchling gets knocked down a little bit. It's a nice little character moment. They didn't need to put it there, but they did it anyway in order to exemplify the character. Froakie doesn't get a major battle again up at that point until about To Catch a Pokemon Smuggler back way down in episode 12. He gets some character moments with Bamboozling Forest, but his major episode doesn't kick in until about episode 12. And in that episode, he fights off against this bandit who has a Diggersby, and he gets his butt kicked. And then in the next episode, which is episode 13, which is Kindergarten Chaos, Froakie actually ends up losing to Snivy. So that's 2 losses under its belt. And Froakie he's not gelling with it. It's not sitting right with him. You can see it. Like, you can already see it during that whole episode. Even when Sylveon's, like, flirting with him, he doesn't want any part of it. Like, he's too salty about losing at this point, because he's lost to 2 major battles up at this point. And he's stuck with Ash specifically to be with a strong trainer. So he's not really feeling the whole losing thing right now. Obviously, Froakie gets another chance to shine in episode 15 when Ash and Clement have a practice battle, but it's clear that Chespion is, like, weighs too much, so Froakie pretty much makes short work of him. The next major one we get is episode 17, where Ash's Froakie fights off against Frogadier, which is a rush of ninja wisdom, where, again, Froakie loses, but this time the difference is that the focus is on him. And now we have a chance for Ash to pretty much redeem Froakie's loss by having it train under Sampe and Frogadier, which is a very important milestone in Froakie's character development and the pursuit to get stronger. So during that, this is when Froakie pretty much learns Double Team, by the way. And at that point, we can see that Froakie has a willingness to get better, to become stronger, so that he can stop, getting his butt kicked. So there's still enough of Ash's competence in there for Froakie to want to stick around. Even after losing 3 major battles, Froakie still sees enough of a character within Ash to go, okay, I'll stick around. Plus, he's putting in actual effort to make him a stronger Pokemon. So we see that something is happening here. We see the start and growth of the character. Thank you, Tiana, by the way, for the follow. I appreciate it. Thank you, Tiana Square. So we see that this is the first step towards Froakie's growth into the Ash-Greninja that we see later on. And Double Team takes a major role here because it's one of Froakie's main evasiveness moves. And Froakie doesn't get much major character development until much later. But moving forward into episode 20, Breaking the Tiles at the Chateau, we see that while Froakie himself doesn't get any major development, I think Froakie does chill to watch the fight. But we end up seeing Grant introduced at this point. This is Grant's introduction episode, right? And we see that Grant has a freaking Onix who knows Rock Tomb, and Ash is starting to learn that, okay, Rock Tomb is the strategy for the next fight. See, X and Y did this thing where each gym leader didn't necessarily matter how strong each gym leader's Pokemon was. It was more or less, what strategy are they doing? What are they doing that can otherwise hinder the ability of someone else? Viola had plenty. She had the Gust attack, she had the Psychic attack, the Sticky Webs, the Ice Beam on the ground in order to make the entire ground slippery. She had like 4 combos going for her. Grant has one major combo, but it's hard to get around. It's Rock Tomb. Because the idea here is that Rock Tomb creates a simultaneous wall of offense and defense. It's offense because it slows the Pokemon down and can trap them into a area of rocks that they're unable to escape from, allowing Onix to outmaneuver them. Or it can serve as offense by bombarding the Pokemon with a bunch of rocks to slow them down and hurt them. Or it provides a wall of defense, much like Grant's motif. It creates a giant wall of rocks to pretty much block Grant from getting hurt in any way, shape, or form, because there's a giant thing of rocks falling down, preventing him from getting hurt. The strategy at this point has been, how do we get around that wall? How do we climb that wall and overcome it so that we can attack the up-and-coming Pokemon, that being the Onix and later Tyrant. So this isn't necessarily a moment for Greninja or Froakie, I'm sorry, as you will. This is a moment for Ash to stop and lock down and think, okay, I need a strategy to get around this, because if I do, then my Pokemon can become victorious. So we later see it. And we later see that at this point, we don't get any major big episodes until about so I usually put episode X and Y as episode 24 after episode 22, because narratively that's where it belongs. It just got delayed for circumstances. Episode 23 comes after 24 in this weird situation. But anyway, we get episode 24, which is an undersea place to call home. Now, in this episode, obviously, Ash makes the whole strategy to do Rock Tomb Climb, which later becomes Draco Meteor Climb in the foreseeable battle. Once this ends up happening, we see that Froakie is the first Pokemon to kick this off. And Ash thinks of the idea when Froakie hops back and forth from one item to one item in order to scale the whirlpool. It's how he gets up. So Ash uses Froakie's combination of his maneuverability along with Ash's strategic mind in order to create a pretty much an asset for him in the up-and-coming battle. Tactics setup, speed setup for Onix. Pretty much, yeah, that's pretty much going. He wanted to learn Quick Attack. His Double Team was more fitting now because he can dodge moves instead of going full throttle in a battle. A mistake he made in the Sylveon battle, exactly. So then we move on to the gym battle, and I'm going to try to be as fast about these as possible so we can catch up to where we are. And I'm only tackling the Froakie episodes, mostly. So we end up in this one where, obviously, it's climbing the walls. Big fight. They implement and execute their strategy. And Froakie does end up losing to Tyrant, but he ends up beating Onix, which is a good major milestone in Froakie's development because it shows that after Ash learned a new strategy, Froakie and Ash get the fruits of that labor by defeating Onix, which was the major Pokemon that was revealed. Tyrant was pretty much the ace that we never got to see. So because of this, we wind up in a situation where we do in fact see that Froakie has gotten fruits to its labor, and Ash is showing his level of competence, and it's justifying Froakie's decision to stick with Ash. We see here that we have a level of confirmation that yes, Ash is a good trainer. He is a good boy, for the most part. Skip a couple episodes, mostly Karina stuff. We don't get a major one until foraging through the Forest of Friendship. Yeah, we have little character moments with Froakie here and there in other episodes, but foraging the Forest of Friendship is the big major one. Because we see here that Froakie and Hawlucha end up working together, like, really well. So it shows Froakie's ability to work with other Pokemon alongside of working with Ash. Because Froakie, for the most part, was very secluded and to himself. It's only when he wound up becoming more familiar with the team that he was actually able to interact with Ash, Serena, Clement, and Bonnie's Pokemon a lot more this time around, rather than being a for-yourselfer. Because he's been a loner for the most part. He's been a lone wolf for pretty much the entirety. And it's not until he finally decides, oh yeah, that's right, I need to work with people, that his social skills wind up increasing. We get some summer camp stuff where Froakie winds up working with other Pokemon outside of the main group. So that's Trevor, Tierno, and Shauna's Pokemon. He has to pretty much get along with them at a certain point. So that's all the summer camp stuff. And then we also get episode 44, which is the showdown at the Shallure Gym. Now here, Froakie doesn't actually fight, despite what the cool little opening animation has us believe. But he does wind up watching the fight, which is something I really like that Ash does. I wish he did it a lot more often. It's basically the thing where, like, even Pokemon that aren't participating in the gym battle still watch the gym battle. That way they have a little bit of experience and can learn and, you know, witness what's happening in the gym fight. That way they can learn a little bit more about Ash, learn a little bit more about the other Pokemon, and learn how to fight better. So it's basically training through observation. I love this shit. He did it with Gumi a bunch. He did it with Gumi in one fight, which was the Ramos gym fight, but I did appreciate it. I like when he does things like this. And he even, weirdly enough, did it in Journeys when he had Riolu watch the fight with Dragonite and Lucario. But regardless, it mostly starts from here. I'm sure he's done it in other series before, but it's known to be utilized the most here, where he has, his Pokemon watch a fight that happens just so that they can observe like what's going on. It's basically experience through observation, and I think it's a really great level of showing off how well these characters can develop even when they're not actually fighting. And Froakie does end up fighting in this gym, just not in the gym battle. He winds up assisting with Serena and Clement in order to knock Team Rocket out so they won't interfere in the gym fight. So Froakie does wind up being active in this episode, just not active in the same sense of him fighting off against Karina. And I get why they did it. They wanted to give Hawlucha more spotlight. Pikachu has a rivalry against Lucario. And Fletchinder is an ideal choice for this gym fight because it's a flying type. And Fletchinder is pretty much the most loyal, competent Pokemon Ash has besides Pikachu at this point. So yeah, just to see that definitely helps Froakie's development too, because Froakie witnesses full hand that Ash is very competent with his own Pokemon. And we can see it here. Froakie doesn't get any major episode developments because we mostly enter what I call the Serena arc. Even in the opening, you can see it. The opening changes to mostly a Serena type situation. Most of the episodes are rounded about Serena. We get some episodes about other characters too, but Serena's like spotlight all the way up until about 52. And this is the episode, called the Stealthy Challenge. It's where Sanpei's Frogadier evolves into Greninja, and Ash's Froakie ends up evolving into Frogadier. We get a Stealthy Challenge. Froakie tries to learn more moves and train more from Greninja, and during this, he ends up evolving into Frogadier, which obviously is a really good level of development for him, and it shows competence. And it's good that Sanpei shows up again as a reoccurring character. I kind of wish he was in the league, unfortunately, but unfortunately we don't get that. But it's fine. Froakie obviously evolves into Frogadier. Pretty much a major milestone for him, his evolution. It's because he shows that he's growing with Ash. He's stuck around with Ash long enough to unlock his powers, being a Frogadier. We don't get any major episodes again because we're mostly at this point we're tackling the Gumi phase. So we're in Gumi situation, but we're still in Serena situation too. We get the introduction of Gumi, the Ramos gym fight, Serena's contest, her cutting her hair, major Serena plot. So Frogadier sort of sits back to give the other some time to shine. And then we get major Gumi and Goodra stuff. Sliggoo evolves into Goodra. And then we hit our Lumiose gym battle, which Froakie doesn't take a part of, which is fine. Because, he misses out on 2 of the gym fights. But he already did Ramos's gym fight, so it's fine. So he didn't do Karina's or Ramos's. But he does, he doesn't do Karina's or Clement's, but he does do Ramos's, which is fine. Because in the Ramos gym fight, which I should probably talk about, in the Ramos gym fight, Ash clearly has a disadvantage against Go-Go. But it's in that very same fight that he learns in order to take patience. Because that was the big problem, is that he was rushing through gym fights so quickly that he was so eager to get to his next one. And he would train for the gym fights this time rather than just go straight towards the next one. But here he was so impatient because he was on a win streak that he didn't feel like he needed to slow down. So when Ramos tells Ash to take his time, it throws him off. Because you gotta remember, Ramos is an old man. So he's gonna start when it's time for him to start. He's not gonna start like right when Ash needs him to start. But what it did was that it gave Ash a level of patience to the point where he had to slow down and stop to think of situations that he otherwise couldn't at first. Like, for example, when he starts cutting the hedges. And when he's cutting all the hedges, Ramos tells him to stop, because in cutting those hedges like that, you're also cutting like these flowers and these branches that are potentially going to grow into bushes and trees and stuff. You're cutting, like slow down, idiot. You're cutting growth potential by going so quickly. You got to stop, slow down, and see all the opportunities And thus, if you stop, slow down, and watch the opportunities grow, you can take advantage of those opportunities and be better for it. The speed in which you're going is hindering your development, damn it. So stop it. And Ash implements that into the gym fight. He's in a bad situation. Go-Go's whooping his ass by using like Leaf Tornado combined with like Vine Whip and stuff. And then rather than panicking and having Greninja frantically move around and get hit slowly within the fight, he tells Greninja to slow down, stop, focus, and find some opening to attack, to expose Go-Go and knock him out. And he does just that. And Greninja defeats him by doing that. Because in all intents and purposes, Greninja should have got his ass kicked in that fight. But he doesn't, because we can at least, from a narrative perspective, believe, okay, it's possible for Greninja to win this way specifically because he was able to figure out a loophole or a plot weakness exposure within the strategy itself. Go-Go to earlier I stated that there's 3 types of Pokemon, and I don't know if they still follow this rule in X and Y, but there's powerhouse Pokemon that have decent defense and decent power but low speed or average speed. Tanky Pokemon that have low speed, high defenses, and okay attack power. And then speedy glass cannon Pokemon that have high speed and attack power but piss poor defense. And they all work in a rock, paper, scissors situation, which isn't always the case, but for more than likely it is. Speedy Pokemon beat powerhouse Pokemon. Powerhouse Pokemon can beat tanky Pokemon. Tanky Pokemon can beat out glass cannon Pokemon. Tanky Pokemon can wear glass cannon Pokemon out to the point where they have no choice but to get tired, and then they knock them back with the amount of average power they have because they were able to tough it out through defense. Powerhouse Pokemon can match tanky Pokemon defense and power wise, and the amount of power they're pushing out is more than the defense can take. Speedy Pokemon can beat powerhouse Pokemon because they can constantly dodge the powerhouse Pokemon, and they don't have enough defense to put up with the power, with the speed and power of the glass cannon Pokemon. Rock, paper, scissors situations. Right? So Greninja, for all intents and purposes, is a glass cannon Pokemon, even though he's gotten hit several times. But he's able to outmaneuver Go-Goat and overall beat him using moves like Aerial Ace to take advantage of the fact that Go-Goat's weak against flying moves. So because of Ash's efforts and competence, we see that Greninja does win another fight. Next is mostly Goodra stuff, mostly Clement stuff, and then obviously we run into a situation where in episode 73, we see that we finally get Frogadier a rival, that being Trico, which at first, Frogadier is leagues above Trico, not even a competition. But in watching that, we see that there's growth for another Pokemon. Much like how Ash inspires Shota, and pretty much a lot of the characters, Trico looks up to Frogadier and uses him as a way to become stronger. The entire motif of X and Y was that Ash is competent, and his competence allows other people to get better as people. Everybody winds up becoming better because of Ash. Clement's a better gym leader because of Ash. Serena actually leaves her house, the comfort of her home, and stops doing what she really doesn't want to do. Something that she thought was a nice house hobby, Rhyhorn racing, and goes off to just leave the house to the very least. Not even necessarily to do her showcase, but to leave the house to be a person at least, rather than stick to the comfort of home. She at least decides to leave because of Ash's heroics. Ash's influence even allows Bonnie to want to be closer to Pokemon. Rather than just witnessing the Pokemon in Lumio City, she can embrace Pokemon worldwide, or at least in the Kalos region. Ash's influence makes other trainers and people better. Ash's influence allows Gumi to become Goodra. And not just Goodra, a Goodra that's able to defend the Oasis. Ash's competence and leadership and strategy are what the other characters look up to. Now, we move on. after the rival fight, we hop into episode 75. I mean, 74 is good too because it shows Ash's competence, but Frogadier doesn't really get in that. But then in episode 75, we see that obviously that's more of Shota's development. But Frogadier fights Trico, which allows it to evolve into Grovyle. Again, continuing the motif that Ash and Frogadier's influence is powering up other Pokemon. It's making them stronger. And I like this shit. The world in and of itself, at least the realm of the series that we're watching, is growing because of these characters. Ash is allowing these characters to become better rather than everybody stay stagnant and Ash is the only one that shows any level of improvement. They did a lot of this in OG where Ash was the only one that was really getting any type of better, and even then that progression was very like low key. And then in AG, they had Ash and May get better, but that was about it. No other characters really had much time to get better as characters. They may have episodes here and there, but that was about it. And then in Diamond and Pearl, Ash, Dawn, and Paul got better, but everybody else pretty much remained stagnant with the exception of maybe rivals like Zoe, Nando. So they were playing around with it a little bit more. And then in Best Wishes, they had a huge cast of characters that got better, but they all got better like in that moment, like the moment they appeared. Like, oh, hi, I'm back. Oh, and I'm better now. Like, they all showed up and became better at that moment. Whereas X and Y was very non-selfish about who gets character development. Everyone gets character development. We get entire arcs devoted to characters at this point. Goodra gets a whole arc. Froakie to Frogadier to Greninja, all of that's a whole arc. Serena, whole arc. Clement gets a whole arc. Everyone gets an entire arc to themselves. Bonnie gets literally an entire fucking series. Everyone gets a whole thing. But the only reason they get these things is because they were influenced by the same common denominator, which is Ash. Why do I say that? Because it's important. Shut up, and I talk a lot. Yeah, even Clembot and Mayer get it. So yeah, we move forward. We mostly get Noibat stuff after this, which pretty much still continues what I was saying. The influence that Ash has on other characters. And you can see that Hawlucha has become less selfish. Because if you remember, Hawlucha now has a little brother-esque figure Pokemon to help get better. And this is important. This is really important. Because during this time in the series, remember, this is coming from the same Hawlucha where in the Trevenant episode, Hawlucha didn't work well with others. It was Hawlucha learning to work alongside Froakie. And those two didn't work well together, but then they got better as a team. So, jump forward to here where we see Hawlucha's going out of his way to be an older brother unit to Noibat, which in turn helps later on in the series. So we get to see that level of character development work out. So we get Noibat stuff for 2 episodes. We get the Pikachu movie, Lights, Camera, Pika episode. Froakie, I think, plays a role in that one in some way. I just can't remember what it was. Yeah, we move forward. We don't get much else afterwards. Mostly just generic stuff. A legendary photo op in episode 86. That's a major one. Not really for so much Frogadier. It's mostly for Fletchinder, because that's the episode where he evolves into Talonflame. But we do see that Frogadier is involved, which has that whole Three Amigos concept. Pikachu, Fletchling, and Froakie are a dream trio for Ash because they carry the primary colors red, blue, and yellow. Also, thank you, Lightning, for the host. Appreciate it. But in addition, Frogadier literally saves Ash and Talonflame. So it shows that Frogadier goes out of his way to save Pokemon that he views as his team members, his friends, his family. And it's good to see that. Like, it's good to see that he goes out of his way in order to make the save for them. And he's even in the final shot when Ash, Pikachu, and Talonflame are like celebrating their victory over getting past that Moltres situation. Which is important. They could have easily had him return back to the Pokeball and then do the frame shot, but they didn't. They had all 3 of them front and center for the picture. So, it's very clear that these three in general are like more than just three friends. They're brothers. They're a family. And it works out. And obviously that works out much later, we see in later episodes, which we'll get to. Not much really after that. Frolicking to find the flowers. That's the Eevee. A frolicking find in the flowers. That's the Eevee episode, but it is important that Froakie is actually there. In fact, the entire team is there, which is a really nice screenshot. A tag team battle inspiration. That's pretty much Serena's development episode. It allows, they help out Eevee's development. We get performance pop quiz stuff. Then we move on and we see, towards the end, we get all eyes on the future. That's the Olympia fight. Very important. Again, Pikachu, Talonflame, and Frogadier are used in this fight to show the three amigos. And it's also to show that Olympia... Now, this is important. Because a lot of people tend to miss this. Or at least they make fun of it. This is where we reach our major discussion of where things start to go south. Right here, episode 92. Olympia states that Frogadier is destined for great stuff. She can see it in the future. She's a known psychic. She's able to see the future, right? She says that Frogadier is destined for greatness and that she sees nothing but green. He's getting in that money. But seriously, what ends up happening is that what she means by this obviously comes much further in the future. And this is at the point where I believe that X and Y probably was just getting the memo that, hey, yo, check this out. We're making Gen 3 remakes, so change your entire plot for that. I mean, it was probably already apparent way back in when Shota was introduced, when we already got the trailers for it. But now it's really hitting the writers. Oh shit, that's right. Hoenn shit's happening. Well, we still want to do our X and Y plot. We worked really hard on it, so we're gonna do it, damn it. And AG will be a part of it. It'll just be a side piece. So at this point, what they wind up doing is that they talk about, obviously, the up-and-coming threat, but they got to be very vague about it because, we still got a bunch of episodes to go. Frogadier, at this point, is very competent. We noticed that at this point in the series, Frogadier hasn't lost a single fight it's been in, by the way. That's very important. The last major fight, Frogadier actually doesn't lose any fights. In fact, the last major fight that Froakie loses, if we had to point out a fight that Froakie loses, is back in, is way back earlier in episode. I want to say the last major fight they lose is in episode 42. That's the last major fight, and that's against Tyranno. When Ash fights off against Squirtle. He doesn't lose any fights after that. He's literally just going straight win streak on bitches. So he even wins this fight. All eyes on the future. Talonflame and Frogadier work really well together. And remember, Frogadier already has experience working with the flying type Pokemon back in foraging through the forest with Hawlucha. So he used that experience from working with Hawlucha in order to work with Talonflame. And he already has a good enough bond with Talonflame. So at this point, they work majorly together. But obviously this raises questions. Why the fuck does Frogadier have more of a bond with Ash than Pikachu at this point? Or at least why is their bond being focused on where Ash and Pikachu's bond isn't necessarily the focus? Well, it's very clear Ash has a close bond with all of his Pokemon. Ash has a close bond with Pikachu, Greninja, Frogadier, all of them. His entire team. He has a bond with all of them. His closest bond is with Pikachu, but that's his own personal bond that he has with Pikachu. Ash's bond he has with Frogadier makes sense because they share the same mindset. Just because you have a close bond with somebody doesn't necessarily mean you have the same mindset. It just means that you're very close to them. Ash and Pikachu are very similar, yes. But Ash and Frogadier have the same mindset in terms of this series. And in the context of this series, both of them have had the mindset that we help other people get better through us getting better. And we win constantly because we've been using strategies and battling in unique ways, as well as having a strategic and powerful combination. We are using this at this point in order to become better as characters and thus win. I don't know how important this was for the writing of X and Y, when in Best Wishes, in the final episode, Ash makes the statement that he will win the next league. But he carries that over in a way to where his drive is to win. Ash only wants to win. That's his drive to get better, is to become the victor. And it's obviously the audience's drive too. At this point, Ash has lost like so many leagues, people have pretty much given up faith in him as an audience member. But within the confines of the series, this hits Ash personally. He even makes the statement, and this is interesting. In Best Wishes, he makes the statement when Delia asks him, how was the Unova League? Because she didn't watch that one. She's like, how was the Unova League? And Ash goes, I didn't do that well. I got 8th. Notice that he points that out. He goes, I only got 8th this time. Why does he point out that he only got 8th this time? He could have easily just said, I got top 8. Or he could have just said, it was fun, I met a lot of strong trainers. You know, generic blob shit. But he doesn't. He goes back and says, I only got 8th this time. And he makes it a big effort to say that I'm going to win the next league at the end of the last one. Which is like, he does this a lot, where like in most series, excuse me, he makes that claim that he wants to win the league. I mean, obviously, he's the main character. No main character sits up and says, I want to get a runner-up in the next tournament. Yeah, Ikaze. No, he obviously wants to win the damn thing. Everybody, name one person who goes into a tournament under the mindset that they're going to get 16th place or 8th. Like, nobody. Not a goddamn person in the world is going to stop and be like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's get a mediocre spot in the tournament that I signed up and paid money to be in. So obviously Ash's mindset is a positive one. He wants to be the victor. And that carries over. I don't know if it was intentional. I don't know if the writing was carrying over from what Best Wishes gave us or what. But his mindset at this point is that he wants to win. He wants to bring home the gold. And obviously that's carried out. And like throughout the series, he wants to finish through. And obviously a lot of characters in the series that don't even know who Ash is up until this series have reason to believe that he can actually do it. They all look up to him, they all cheer him on because it's his influence that has pushed other trainers to become better. When other people watch Ash, they get involved. They want to grow. They want to become better. His influence has even inspired other characters that aren't even in this goddamn series. When Alon and Marin's series is a separate series, Marin points out how brave Ash was for jumping off the freaking Lumiose Tower. And then that gets Alon's attention a little bit, but he shrugs it off as nothing because that's not his concern right now. It's only until later in the XYZ series where he starts to get more and more interest in him. But moving here, we see that after Olympia makes this statement, through the audience's perspective, this leads for more pressure. The audience is now expecting a lot more. And Ash has already been delivering quite a bit in this series, so when Olympia says that Greninja's destined for great things, it's very palpable how people can see that this would be a major plot point. Yes, Ash needs to go ahead and deliver on the promise that Olympia is making the audience. Yeah, so at this point, unfortunately, without knowing it, Olympia has talked to the audience saying, yo, check this out. Greninja's gonna be the shit when it evolves. We don't know that yet. Nobody knows that yet. Olympia doesn't even know that yet because the writers haven't made it yet. And then obviously we move on to the XYZ stuff. Major plot point usually shoots at the two-parter, episode 99 and 100. A Legend of the Ninja Hero. This is where we get our Ash-Greninja stuff. Froakie evolves into Greninja. Ash-Greninja is born. He becomes a pivotal piece and ends up fighting off against Bisharp. This power is seen, but we don't know much about it. And it happens so quickly that we don't get the chance to really absorb what happened. We obviously move forward into episode 101, which is Serena's stuff. And then we hop right back into episode 102. And like a lot of plot happens within episodes 99 all the way up until episode 103. Like just major plot heavy shit. Yeah, this whole deal is just really like a lot. Like a lot's happening. If anything, You could even argue that episode 99 all the way up until about episode 107, we just get nothing but plot heavy shit. I mean, episode 104's got some stuff too, but yeah. So, yeah, we go here, and at this point, we see that Ash-Greninja ends up doing the transformation again in episode 102 at Meeting in the Terminus Cave when they fight off against Team Flare. Because they fought off against Team Flare already in episode 94. But they fight him again, and this time we see that now the Ash-Greninja stuff is happening again. Only again, they don't really pay much attention to it. It's something that we learn a little bit more about, is that when Ash suffers, Greninja suffers, or vice versa. When Greninja gets hurt, Ash gets hurt. So we know the transformation takes its toll on the body. But after that, we move forward. We don't get much Froakie stuff, much Greninja stuff until 106. A meeting of two journeys when Alon finally ends up meeting up with Ash. He oversees his fight with Shota, and we see that Greninja has the ability to transform into Ash-Greninja. And this time, we actually get to see it, and more people are observing it, and it's not just in the moment at this point, because the other two times it happened was in the middle of plot-heavy shit. So we didn't have time to, rest over it. Now we're finally seeing Ash-Greninja in a casual sense. Now we're seeing it in just them training. They're training and they're observing and they're learning that, oh, these events are taking place, and thus we're seeing that the transformation is not just something that happens in pinches, it happens in battles, right? So once we finally get that, we see that now we see the potential. And obviously as an audience members, we already know about the Ash-Greninja transformation, just simply because Koro scans and previews and shit like that, where we see it. And obviously it's in the opening as well too, so there's no mistake. We're getting there, we just are slowly getting there for the sake of story development. But now we're going to do the thing that everybody says that Pokemon doesn't do and give other characters spotlight. I mean, you can even argue in episode 104, Noibat ends up getting his episode right there. And then in 105, Eevee turns into Sylveon in that episode. So we are getting moments. I think people are just blinded by the fact that Greninja takes over not only the opening, he's the big Koro scan thing. Olympia hyped him up in the previous series X and Y. Yeah, he gets a lot of the hype. He gets a lot of the attention in terms of, hype. But he doesn't get necessarily he's not hogging the screen time. The series does pick and choose when it's time for him to shine. It's just his moments hold more weight. That's what the difference is. Because immediately after this, we move on to some Team Flare shit. We move on to some Clement stuff. And then we move on to Serena stuff. We put an end at that masterclass choices. But we're not done with Serena's choices part. We're taking a break from the stuff that just happened. Just a beat. Then obviously an electrifying rage in which Noibat gets his character development in order to evolve into Noivern, along with Halucha's character development. And even Talonflame gets more development because he's a flying type Pokemon as well. So episode 110 is a good development episode for the flying type Pokemon. Even though clearly people say that X, Y, and Z only focus on Greninja, even though it doesn't. We move on and we get more Serena development in episode 112, 113, obviously. Then we get Clement/Bonnie development for 114, A Keeper of Keeps. We get more Serena development even after her arc has ended. Yeah, because in episode 113, that's pretty much the end of Serena's major story. That's the masterclass stuff. But it's over. But she still gets an episode because the story still wants to give her a development. So Serena gets a battling at full volume. That's the one where she cross-dresses as Ash. Then we get episode 116, which is a synchronicity test. That's pretty much the episode where they observe the events that happened in 106 and decide to use it for episode 116. So 10 episodes after the fact, Clement goes, you know what? Let's figure this out. Let's figure out why Greninja does this shit. And obviously we end up seeing the startup of Greninja's character arc. We're entering Greninja. We're entering the Greninja arc at this point. This is it. This is all it right here. Everything else was built up. We got the Greninja arc. Ash fights Alon again. This fight doesn't get finished, unfortunately, though, because Ash turns into Ash-Greninja, but he faints in the middle of the fight. But we learn here that the Ash-Greninja form takes its toll. It offers Greninja a lot of power, but it does a lot of damage to Ash's body. We learn a lot about this. And we also get to see one of the biggest fears Ash has, that being when Ash loses a fight, he feels like Greninja's gonna leave. Because you gotta remember, up to this point, they don't actually lose any major fights except for that fight against Charizard. So when we see this fight happen, Ash has believed that he's lost. This is coming from a win streak where Froakie has done nothing but win at this point. So Greninja losing just seems foreign. It seems like something that's a little scary, because remember, we saw that back in episode 102, if Greninja takes damage, Ash takes damage. Whatever Greninja feels, Ash feels. So if Greninja loses a fight, then he knows deep down, he knows how Ash feels. The problem with this is that we learned way back in episode 2 that Froakie left the other trainers because it hated losing. It doesn't like weak trainers. So when Ash lost against Alon that first time and then faints in the next fight, he views this as losing. He's starting to feel the pressure. He's going, oh crap, if I don't get my absolute shit together, Greninja's gonna leave. Thankfully, none of that happens. It's just foreshadowing shit that happens in Ash's head that we, the audience, get to see. Next we get a Bonnie episode. It's not important. Then we get an episode 118. Now this is the big one, because this is the one that kicks off like a lot of people's expectations through the roof. And it's championing a research battle. This is pretty much where Greninja ends up almost beating Diantha's Gardevoir. Why is this important? It's important because, like, their drive to win, and Ash does this a lot, where the stronger his opponent is, the more pumped up he gets for the fight. You can see, like, he did his best when he fights off against, like, Paul and Tobias and shit. So when he ends up fighting off against Diantha, he's more hyped to fight Diantha because she's the champion. The ability to fight Diantha has given him the drive to push himself forward. We see this exemplimented through the fight. And Greninja obviously gets hyped about this as well. And their combined level of anxiousness transforms and completes the Ash-Greninja transformation. Because up to this point, we've seen Ash-Greninja unmastered. That little clunk shit that's around him, that water clunk shit, that's like, they got the power, but it's not completely in sync. They do the fight again, only this time, Ash-Greninja is finally complete. They're able to fight very effectively. And also, I want to rewind back to episode 99 when in the Ninja Village they talk about the bond phenomenon. They're very vague about it, but it's pretty much an ability that's bestowed upon every now and then. It's sort of like a Kalos WTF moment, and I'll tackle that later. But here we can see that in synchronization, we see that when that happens, Ash-Greninja not only complete their transformation, they give Diantha a run for their money. It's only until Ash ends up fainting and Team Rocket interrupts the battle that we don't get a conclusion to that fight, because people's expectations would be way too high if Ash and Greninja actually won that fight. But it's very clear that Ash and Greninja are able to hold their own against Diantha in a fight. This obviously gets them more hyped up, and now Ash and Greninja's heads are through the cloud. They believe that they're unstoppable. They believe they can pretty much take on any challenge. There's nothing that's too good for them. He's got his nose too far up in the air at this point. So he starts to lose touch of, like, reality. And that's where we get our major problem here in episode 119, which is a full strength battle surprise. That's when they fight Shota. Now, when they fight Shota has Sceptile, and, like, they've mastered Mega Evolution at this point too. So they've gone through their own level of development. And when they fight, Greninja has been winning every fight against Sceptile up to this point. It's here that he loses. Ash tries his best in order to do the transformation. He's fully aware that it exists, and then realizes, why won't it work? Sceptile ends up beating the shit out of him, and while Ash ends up losing the fight. It's a training fight, so they don't pay too much attention to it. They just view it as like okay, that was weird. So we move on to episode 120. But it's very clear that in episode 119, when Greninja lost, Greninja's starting to feel some type of way too. Remember, Pokemon don't talk like people. They don't talk, except for Meowth and Mewtwo, and a lot of psychic Pokemon. And sometimes just Pokemon in general in movies. But Greninja feels a type of way about losing. It's not sitting right in his stomach. He always beats Sceptile, so what was the difference here? In episode 120, a hail in the ice battlefield. The ice battlefield, ironically, isn't the problem here because Ash has already had experience fighting on an ice battlefield. So I like that little attention to detail. The problem here is the fact that Avalugg just has this huge defense. And weirdly, this gym fight to me is almost a combination of Viola and Grant. They're dealing with an ice-type battlefield while dealing with the defensive wall of Avalugg. And honestly, this is my favorite gym fight in the series, to me. Like, just hands down. My second favorite. Olympia's is my favorite. This is my favorite gym fight in the series. Just simply because Avalugg is just a freaking... He's healing every turn because of the hail that Abomasnow gave him. Avalugg's defense is like the highest in the entire game. So he's not taking much damage from physical attacks, which is all Ash-Greninja knows. Except, yeah, that's all he has. And then, on top of all of that, he uses Avalanche, which is the move that does double damage after Avalugg already gets hit. And Avalugg's one of the slowest Pokemon in the game. So, it's a nice combo. Like, it's a big, just juicy combo that works very well. And it's one of the situations that I talked about earlier. Remember when I said that tanky Pokemon can beat out glass cannons? Well, we see it here. Greninja's faster, he's stronger, but unfortunately, he doesn't have the power to stop Avalugg's just straight up tank-like defense strategy. He's able to hold him out, and everything that Ash does doesn't work. They keep attacking him, but obviously it doesn't have enough stopping power to bring Avalugg down. In fact, Avalugg heals every time they get done attacking him and does double damage using Avalanche. They can't even get the Ash-Greninja transformation right. They got it, but they forced it. So now it's not the same. It's like trying to run while you're having... It's like trying to run while you're also having heart problems. You shouldn't do it. And yes, you can wind up running as well as you are normally supposed to run. But at this point, you're running and hurting, doing more damage to yourself than accomplishment you're making for running. So at this point, the issue isn't, are you going to win or lose the race? It's, are you going to wind up alive? And yes, you're going to lose the race. So at this point, it's very sad to watch too. You can see the frustration Ash is having by not being able to win the fight. Because it's very clear it's a one-sided snowball fight, no pun intended. And Greninja is getting frustrated too. Each of the attacks are all uncoordinated. He's making tactical errors over and over and over. And he's trying his hardest. But unfortunately, he's trying through force and not through calm mind. So they lose. And here's where we enter the arc. The climax point of the arc. It's here that in episode 121, obviously Ash loses his faith as a trainer. And it's like, what's the deal? He's had depression arcs before. How is this any different? Well, the difference here is that in this depression arc specifically, he was given a Pokemon that abandoned a bunch of other trainers on the mindset that he could be the trainer to meet Greninja's expectations. Ash has always wanted to meet everyone's expectations. It's even very important to point out that in episode 120, he fights Wolfric, and guess who's watching? Shota. The last time Shota watched a fight that Ash had was way back in episode 74, Fairy-type Trickery. It's important because in that fight, Ash wins, using his powers of making unique strategies as well as his competence. He has something to prove. Unfortunately, in episode 120, this winds up blowing up in his face because it doesn't work out the way he wanted. He wanted to prove to Shota that he and Greninja are competent. But he already lost points in episode 119 by losing to Shota, and then loses more points in episode 120 by losing again. And they also want to point out that Shota already has Wulfric's badge. So even at this point in the story, it's very clear that Shota is losing respect. Ash believes that Shota is losing respect for him. Shota never loses respect for Ash. Ash believes that Shota is losing respect for him. And in that same light, Greninja believes that he has lost Sceptile's respect. The pressure's on. So many people want Ash to win. And I find this very funny because this is reflective upon how the audience views Ash. Everyone, up to all the way from the OG series to AG to DP to BW to now, have had this weird pattern in which Ash can win a bunch of battles in each of those series respectfully, but it's the one time he loses at like a 1 point that people stop liking him. Oh, Ash just sucks because he can't win any leagues, despite the fact that everybody else is entering the league too at the same time. So it's the equivalent of a person entering a tournament, a real life tournament, and not being able to beat them, as opposed to a setup video game where the AI has to lose so that you can continue the game, right? Ash is losing, and thus he's not able to be a good trainer. He sucks as a trainer because he's losing. Whereas in this series, he's winning a bunch of times in great opposition to what most audience members think of him. He's competent in this series. So much like how the other characters believe that he's going to win every fight, much how Greninja believes he's going to win every fight, much like how Ash believes he's going to win every fight, when he loses fight, he starts to believe that he's incapable of being a competent trainer. He loses his mindset. He stops believing. He pretty much believes what the audience members already believe of him. Everybody, all that pressure that the audience members, even though Ash doesn't know who the audience members are, that's us. All that pressure that the characters in the series are, Ash has pretty much made up that all these characters need him to win. He must win. If he doesn't win, then everyone's going to leave him. You're only good when you're performing well. And that's pretty much a danger that most people in real life face too, is that they believe that if they don't perform optimally, then everyone's not going to like them anymore. All that fame, that notoriety, that everything that people have grown to believe about you will immediately go away once you're at your lowest point. Nobody's going to stick around when you're at your lowest points. They only want you when you have everything. I mean, and that's how real life technically works sometimes. So when Greninja does just that. He starts losing faith in himself, and by proxy loses faith in Ash. They're connected. Ash abandons himself. But it's because he's had such a huge influence on other characters, they have enough strength to confront him. The one character that's had the most influence of Ash is Serena. She's the one that confronts Ash because she takes everything that Ash has taught her up to this point and uses it against him. So when what ends up happening is that Serena says, cut the shit, stop being a baby. Yes, you've lost. Yes, we've all sat there and watched you win 100 times. But we don't lose any respect for you because you lose. We've all lost, Ash. You're the only reason that we've been able to get better at losing. We were all in shitty spots. Serena stayed at home and did Rhyhorn racing despite the fact that it felt like a chore to her. She liked it, but it felt repetitive and it felt like a chore. And it took Ash and his inspiration to get her to get up and get out the house and search for something. And now look at her. She's already done the master class and made it to top runner-up. It was his influence that allowed her to get back up after falling. It's the reason that she changes her entire character in the first place. Clement was a pathetic loser of a gym leader who couldn't who couldn't bear to be a gym leader or hold the responsibilities of it. So he had a robot do it for the most part. And then the robot ended up going against him. So he's not even the leader of his own gym anymore. It's not until Ash influences him to kick his ass forward that he becomes a better gym leader for it. Ash's influence rubs off on Bonnie because they both love Pokemon, so they don't really need to have a lot of character moments. But regardless, that influence rubs off on Bonnie, in which it allows her to make the tough decisions that she makes, releasing Pokemon that have a close bond with her, despite the fact that they really love Bonnie. It's Ash's influence that's had an impact on this team so much that they know what to do when they lose. It's when Ash loses that doesn't know what to do, and he ends up losing himself. He's lost sight of things several times in this series, but none have been so impactful as to this moment. And it's at this moment that Ash ends up fully believing that because he lost, he means nothing. All the impacts, all the lives, every person that he's touched immediately doesn't mean a thing because of this one loss. That's what's going on through Ash's head. That's what he believes. And even in the audience perspective, when we watch him, we're getting hyped about him being able to be competent. We're being hyped about the fact that everybody looks up to him. We're being hyped about the fact that he's actually the main character that we've wanted him to be for so long. So lo and behold, when he finally loses, Ash stops to get into that little mindset and spiral where he believes that he's nothing. Obviously, this is wrong. He shouldn't think this way. But when you look at it through audience perspectives, when you look at it through the comments, Twitter, comments that other people have made on blogs, videos, all of that, you see it all the time. The picture with Ash and versus Red or whatever, and it shows like the comparisons that they have and how important one character is versus the other and blah, 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 blah. Or like how they say Red is the champion of the league, but Ash can never win a league a day in his life. Or like his rival Blue respects him. Gary doesn't even recognize his existence. You know, those little things. You see those? You see them all the time, right? Also, thank you, Gold, for the follow. I appreciate it. Hey, let's go, Gold Ligger? Gold Ligger OX? Thank you, Gold. Also, what's up, Strike Dragoon? I noticed that a lot of longtime fans with Pokemon. So yeah, it's at this point, and this very point in the series, that Ash realizes that losing to him means that everyone will leave him again. 121 is a good episode to stop. What's up, Donnie? 121 is a good staple episode to pretty much stop and go, hey, this is it. If you lose, then no one's going to really care about you anymore. You're going to go back to that loser that was in Best Wishes, back to that loser that was in Diamond and Pearl, back to that loser in AG, back to that loser in OG, right? He's spiraling in this mindset. And it's very clear that, like, the way this series was written, it could have gone either way. Now that time has passed, it could have gone either way. It's very clear the initial idea was for Ash to win the Kalos League. But here, it could go either way because the story is so well woven. They found a way around the alternative of what would happen if he loses. And that's what they wind up doing. Episode 121, where Ash is inside of this like cave with all these Pokemon, he realizes that win or lose, the reason I became a trainer was because I love Pokemon. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna lose. Yeah, I'm gonna win. Things happen. But I became a trainer specifically because I love Pokemon. And that's what the most important thing is. Do I still love Pokemon? Yes. Do I love winning? Yes. Do I hate losing? Also yes. But do I love Pokemon is the overarching question. That's the thing that makes or breaks this entire setup. Without it, Ash would just be miserable the entire time. This entire series and the one before it and the others before it would just be Ash being upset that he loses a bunch of times. And you notice it throughout each series that every time he lost, he got a little bit better about it and accepted it. Whereas here, there was so much pressure for him to win because he dropped a place. In Diamond and Pearl, he gets 4th place, but in Best Wishes, he gets 8th. So the loss he takes is a personal one. Sorry for the ambulance. I guess somebody broke their arm. But the loss he takes is personal. So he makes it an effort to win under all circumstances. But that blows up in his face in episode 120. Whereas in 121, he needs to get his active shit together. And he needs to realize that, yes, I can lose. Because I'll still love Pokemon in the end, regardless of the situation. Because if I force myself to win so much, I lose sight of who I am. And he tells Greninja that. Now remember this episode, because a lot of people don't. They say they do, but they really don't. This is an integral piece. And this right here is what makes or breaks the rest of the series. Whether you've paid attention to it or not. Obviously, in 122, we get the episode where they do the rematch and they freaking win. A lot of people say this is one of the best fights in the entire XYZ series. Honestly, this is not my favorite gym fight. It's a good gym fight. Though let's not get it twisted. It's a really good gym fight. But they've already learned the lesson, so the fighting is just for spectacle. But it does follow the same, pattern that I made up. The powerhouse versus the tanky versus the glass cannon. Because notice that the Avalugg thing stops because it's too good of a combo for Greninja to overcome. Wolfric winds up using Abomasnow, which to me is a mistake. He uses Abomasnow, and Abomasnow does his Snow Warning combo, the one with the hail. And Greninja beats it because, to me, Abomasnow is not a tanky Pokemon, it is a powerhouse Pokemon. And Greninja winds up beating the snot out of it, thus the rule that I made is still in effect. Glass Cannon beats Powerhouse. Glass Cannon is so fast, it can outmaneuver Powerhouse, and thus Powerhouse doesn't stand a chance. And Powerhouse doesn't have the same defense as Tanky, so Powerhouse loses to Glass Cannon. Greninja, in this case, is the Glass Cannon, beats the stuffing out of Powerhouse. So we wind up in a situation where, yes, it happens. And they also want to show off Mega Evolution, and Abomasnow just happens to be a Pokemon that can Mega Evolve, so it's a chance to show it off. It's a good looking fight, but narratively, it's the weaker fight. To me, the fight, again, the episode 120 fight is a better narrative fight than 122. Also, what happened, and he has Bergmite as his league. Why not Cryogonal from the games? I don't know. Yeah, it's a weird fight. Funny you say it's the year of the tiger. Okay, this is the year of the tiger. Neat. Anyway, we move forward. We get more Goodra stuff. So yeah, Goodra is not completely abandoned. We move forward. We enter episode 124. That's Clement's episode, kinda. It's like a hilarious episode. It's a beat. What it is, it's a nice peaceful beat before we hop into the league, which is good. We don't need things to be action over and over and over and over. It's good to have like a nice little resting spot. And then obviously we enter the Pokemon League, and then we're gonna skip some stuff. Shota, I mean, obviously that's Ash-Greninja, Shota, and Sceptile's character development coming to a close in episode 128. So we finally get closure for that, where, yes, a lot of people would expect, like, oh, Shota can win, and thus shows his, like, development as a character, and that he's overcome the person that he looks up to the most. Yeah, but I think Shota still has a lot of learning to do, and we see it, and Greninja ends up beating him. Obviously, we need to have Ash fight Alon, too, so it's good that Ash ends up fighting off against Sceptile in this. And honestly, in all sense of the word, I believe, like, this could have been the final fight. Like, this would have been a really nice final battle, because to date, I think it's one of the best Pokemon battles in the series. Just Ash versus Sawyer. It's just a really good freaking battle. But that's not to negate the next fight that comes, which is the fight that everybody, which is where the question that LOL originally had begins. So yeah, we finally caught up. Yeah, here we are. Here it is. The episode, the one that cracks off all of this. The final's not for the faint of heart. Oh, sorry, down to the fiery finish. Episode 131, the one everybody hates. Even if it was, despite the fact that it's a good fight, everybody hates it. Trust me, everybody fucking hates it. I mean, I love it. I think it's a great battle, but everybody in reality hates it for some reason. So I feel like Ash and Alon should have been a tie or inconclusive. Like, yeah, like right before they end up hitting each other the final time, like a giant red vine just roots up and interrupts the fight. That actually would have been pretty cool. Well, I don't hate it either. if Ash had won, Alon would have refused to listen to his word. He could have doubled down on allying with Lysander because he and Charizard would feel weak, and Lysander being his own source of power. Okay, so here we go. Greninja loses. It's the thing that everybody ends up like turning. Remember, this is why he received so much hate. So sorry for the hour and 25 minute long explanation to this, but this is where it happens right here. It happens right here. Like this is it. Unfortunately, this is where people hate. You want to know why? Because people have a very short mindset, and all they see is the squiggly eyes on Greninja's face, and this unfortunately is what cracks off the loss. This is it right here. But it's clear to me that people who watched episode 131 either skipped or didn't pay attention to episode 121 at all. At all. Very clear that's the case. I don't know what happened. Maybe people just were asleep during 121. Maybe people skipped it. I don't know. In Alola, Ash wins using 2 freaking memes. Right. So that's what happens. It's the fact that the reason that people don't like Greninja this much is because they didn't pay attention to episode 121. That's the reason. That's the overarching reason. Because remember, I stated that episode 121 was the fact that Ash and Greninja both learn that Greninja's love for Ash, for the journey he's been on. Let's look at this through Greninja's perspective. He's gained friendships with Braixen, more specifically. A lot of the other Pokemon on the team. Ash's Pokemon on his own team, Talonflame and Pikachu. Because those are the 2 main ones I'm going to talk about. He's gained relationships not just through Ash and the gang's Pokemon, but through other Pokemon like Sceptile. He's befriended Pokemon. He's befriended people. He's become more of a team player. So through the end of the day, it was never the fact that, oh, if he wins or loses, that's what's important. It's the bonds that he was able to accumulate over that time. Yes, Ash and Greninja are the same in terms of mindset. But it's because they're the same in terms of mindset that they both learn that it doesn't matter if you win or lose. It's everything we've gained up to this point that's important. That's what's important. They lost against Wulfric and lost sight of that. This is the growth that they have. This is what differentiates them between them losing against Wulfric versus losing now. Could you imagine if they had the same mindset that they had when they lost against Wulfric and this league fight? Then the world would be doomed, because shortly after this, Team Flare attacks the entire freaking area. Now imagine if Ash had been in this depression mode and just didn't want to take part in any of this. Lysander takes over the world, destroys everybody. Ash isn't going to put up a fight anymore because there's no point. He's just a loser. He can't accomplish anything. There's nothing he can do. Imagine if episode 121 just never happened, right? And he just kept that mindset the entire way through. Then Kalos would have been done. Lysander would have taken over. He would have had the Megalith Zygarde touch the Megalith stone that's in Olympia's town. He would have touched the sundial, gained ultimate power, destroyed the entire world using Zygarde's power at 100%, and that would be the end. Now remember, Olympia states that Greninja has the ability to change the fate of Kalos. We're going all the way back to episode 92 with this one. This is what she meant. It was never the fucking league. The league was not... Yes, it was important to Ash. It was important to Greninja. It was important to all of Ash's Pokemon. You even see it in fucking episode 123. The league was important to everybody. But that wasn't what Olympia meant by Greninja's destined for great things. If we rewind all the way back to the beginning of the series, episode fucking 3, Froakie's first action was made not because he wanted to win the fight against Fletchender. It was made because he wanted to avenge the fact that Fletchinder stole some food from Bonnie. Frogadier saves Ash and Talonflame from falling to the lava to their death. Greninja has always had a hero's mindset the entire time. His mindset above everything else, much like Ash's, is to do the right thing. It's why Froakie sticks around with Ash in episode 2 during the Garchomp situation. None of that has anything to do with Froakie. Froakie could have easily just sat back at Sycamore's lab and watched the entire events unfold, but he doesn't. He ends up sticking with Ash the entire time because he wants to be like Ash. He wants to do the right thing. He wants to be a hero. And the only way he can do that is to stick with strong trainers, to become stronger, to be as strong as absolutely possible, and win to assert dominance, to assert that he's stronger than everybody. But then he runs into a situation where he loses. Uh-oh, what happens when I lose? Am I weak? Is Ash weak? Did I make the wrong decision? Am I not destined for greatness? Can I not save people or be a strong icon if the trainer that's with me is losing? Wait a second. The trainer that's with me is upset too. But he's giving me some realization here. Yes, we may lose, but it's not losing that makes us not who we are anymore. It's how we are after we lose. Do we wallow in our loss, not learning a goddamn thing, staying weak as we think we are? Or when we lose, do we pick ourselves the fuck back up and try again, not even with the mindset of whether we win or lose? It's do we stay firm and hold the people that we hold dear close? Greninja learns this by going, oh, Ash is important to me. Win or lose, I've gained a family within Ash, within Talonflame, within Pikachu, within the rest of the Pokemon that they caught, within other people's Pokemon, within Alon's Charizard, we've gained a rivalry, within Shota's Sceptile. I've been able to gain so many bonds and touch so many people's lives. And it's all because of who I am, not because of my win streak. And that's something I think a lot of fans miss. Episode 121 is pivotal because it shows that win or lose, it's the people that you're around that matters. Look what you've gained. Remember, and let's flip this for a second to the Mega Evolution special. I rarely talked about it, but I'll talk about it for the sake of the series. And I'm sorry this is so long. The reason I have to do all of this is because it gives context. And X and Y was a pretty hefty series, and Greninja takes up a large chunk of it. So in order for me to talk about it, I have to talk about the series pretty much. It's a huge chunk of a narrative. So let's flip the Mega Evolution for a second. What happens when Alon ends up winning a bunch of times? He ends up winning, but look what happens to him. The one major loss he has is the one where in Mega Evolution Act 3, when he fights against all three of the Hoenn deities, Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza. That's his major loss. Like, that's a big loss for him. And Marin gets hurt during that. So, what ends up happening is, Alon takes that as a major loss. By Mega Evolution Act 4, it gets worse. He pushes Marin away. I don't want to lose you anymore, because if I lose, then you lose. I don't want to lose anything anymore. It's so important that this happens, because Alon does the same thing that Ash does. But there's differences. Alon goes, I'm going to do anything in order to get stronger. If that means I'm going to have to listen to Lysander to a T, then so be it. It's just you and me, Charizard. We're the only ones here. And we have to keep winning. Originally, he became a trainer so that he could have fun. You see that in Mega Evolution Act 1. He likes fighting strong trainers. His first few Mega Evolution fights he has are with strong trainers, and he enjoys himself. Guess who winds up piquing his interest in battles again? Ash. Enter Ash, the character that was mentioned in Mega Evolution Act 1, but wasn't really paid much attention to. It was just something that popped in his head when Marin said, there's a brave trainer named Ash Ketchum who jumped off the Lumiose Tower, and he's like, huh, okay, whatever. But then they cross each other's paths. He watches Ash fight. He's impressed by it. It's the only fight that Alon does that isn't some type of team player mission or a league fight or a gym fight. It's just for fun. It's the only fight he has that's like that. And it's what encourages him to want to challenge the league. Remember, Ash influences everyone. And his influence has given Alon the ability to realize, wait a minute, win or lose, Pokemon. That's why I decided to be a researcher. That's why I decided to study Mega Evolution. I've walked away so far from what Sycamore taught me and stuck so much with what Lysander had. I've lost complete sight of that. Ash helped me realize that. But notice this happens before Ash even realizes it himself. It's not until episode 121 that Ash stops to realize this. Alon realizes it much sooner, but unfortunately, he still has it in the back of his mind that he must win. It's still there, and that's why he doesn't talk to Sycamore during the league for the first part. Are you going to play Tales of Arise one day? No, not really. I don't care that much for it. I mean, like, I like it. I think it's a cool game, but I don't see myself playing it anytime soon. Maybe later when it's on sale or something. But anyway, back to topic. But then we know the true reason why they have to get rid of Greninja. We're getting to that. Don't worry. So we see later, that we get our league fight. And yes, Kuro brought it up. They could have ended the fight with a tie, but I think nobody would have been satisfied by it. They got to give Ash a little number ranking, I guess, just for accountability's sake. Maybe, I don't fucking know. But they went ahead and had him lose. I think they had to either have him win or lose. A tie, I don't think would have worked in this particular context, because after he loses, Ash doesn't get upset. He gets reasonably upset, but we don't see it until after they leave the stadium. Ash picks Greninja up, and they both smile. This is good. This is a large leap away from what happens in 121. This is what happens. Ash drove himself to win so badly. Power, to get stronger, to be better. But now he's lost, and this time, he can stop and realize, wait a minute. Winning isn't the main thing here. Did I have fun? Alon realizes this too, but unfortunately it's masked by his will to get more power. They both have the exact same problem. They're almost the same goddamn character when you think about it. It's just Alon and Charizard have more experience. That's literally all it is. Yes, Charizard and Alon have a bond. Ash and Greninja have a bond. They both see in the same mindset. It's just that, obviously, Alon and Charizard have had more time. Remember, Alon had Charizard at the start of Mega Evolution Act 1. During that time, Ash's Greninja wasn't even a fucking Greninja yet. It was still a Froakie. Still a goddamn Froakie at this point in the story. So it's very reasonable to believe that, yes, an experienced veteran Charizard can beat a Froakie that leveled up and slowly got to where we are here. Less experience. Alon's been in the Kalos League longer than Ash. And Charizard's on a level where it can fight off against freaking legendary Pokemon and hold its own. So it's very believable that Greninja can lose here. But that's not the point. The point isn't whether they win or lose. The point was whether or not they stick together and remain friends after. Greninja didn't leave Ash after. Now, bullet point. Leave. We're going to skip the team player stuff because it's not that it's not important. It just doesn't hold as much weight. And it kind of continues what we've been saying. All the way up until Greninja does his water shuriken and it lands in the center of Zygarde. Now, obviously, if Greninja didn't do that, none of the trainers would know how to get inside of the Megalith Zygarde in order to save Chespin, and thus by proxy save the day. We see that this happens. It all happens there. So if you want to get technical, this is the part where that Olympia meant. Olympia meant this part right here, when Greninja did that one task to help the others get further in. Greninja does this, and thus they are allowed to defeat Megalith Zygarde. So Greninja did his goal. He is destined for great things. He did the goal necessary to allow the others to defeat Megalith Zygarde. So he follows through with that. The league was not supposed to, the league had nothing to do with what Olympia said. The league was a byproduct of Ash and Greninja's close bond, but it wasn't supposed to be the payoff result. This was right here, more specifically episode 136, if we had to tack a name to it. But we move on, and we unfortunately get to our episode 139. This is the one where he has to leave. Now obviously, there's two things to come about with this. There's the behind the curtains marketing, the behind the curtains writer's reason for why Greninja has to leave, and then the plot made reason that we get in front of us. Greninja has to leave, obviously, in the plot reason because there's still more vines taking over, which I guess that makes sense. Zygarde cells are split across the entire freaking world, so it only makes sense that in the Kalos region, where they end up forming into 100% Zygarde, the origin where they come from, Terminus Cave, that there would still maybe be some corrupted Zygarde cells that are causing the trees to get infected. The cells in and of themselves affect all of nature. They are a result of nature. They are a byproduct of nature. Zygarde lives off of those cells, and thus those cells benefit from nature. It's a synergetic situation. A photosynthesis, if you will. It's one of the reasons why Zygarde lives off sunlight. So by proxy, it gives back to nature. It is a hexagonal piece within the world that exists around it. It's pretty much like the equivalent. You know how Zygarde was making all of those plants turn like evil, like getting uprooted. What he essentially did was he sped up the growth of plants that otherwise were deeply rooted into the ground. It's kind of like, in a sense, it's kind of like they put bad soil in the Kalos and had it root all around. And since it happened in Lumio City, that's the center of Kalos, it's very possible that it spreads about if you want to BS this as much as you can. Obviously, the only reason Greninja can see all of these is for plot purposes. But there's so many holes in this, you can pretty much call it Swiss cheese, the plot. The behind the scenes reason, or the marketing writing reason, is because Ash can't go around carrying a god-killing Greninja with him in every region that he goes to. Also, you can pretty much argue the Alola region or the Sun and Moon series wasn't really in the right tone for Greninja. Like, it doesn't really fit him. It's kind of going to be impossible to show off Ash and Pikachu's bond, which they end up showing off the most in that series, if Greninja's rolling around transforming into Ash-Greninja and one-shotting every goddamn thing. It'd make for a boring story, right? Nobody would want to watch it. Ash is supposed to be using Z moves. That's the hot shit in Sun and Moon. And it's kind of hard to do that if you have Ash use his fusion transformation every goddamn episode. Like, it's impossible to do it. And even if you make the argument, well, he can just drop them off at Professor Oak's laboratory. Well, yeah, but we as an audience would still know he's there. The writers had to basically axe out any excuses to bring Greninja back so that we don't wind up in this situation. Now, for the third reason, the reason that I fucking made up, that you can take or leave with a grain of salt, but this is the one that I believe narratively works. So, at the beginning of the series, Froakie leaves a bunch of trainers because they're not good enough. They're weak trainers. They suck. He's not a team player. He's not willing to strategize. He's not willing to work together. He's not willing to form bonds with anyone. He's secluded. He's lonely. Fast forward all the way to the end of the series. Here we are. Now, what do we have? We have in Froakie's lonely ass place, we have a Greninja who's gained bonds with all of Ash's Pokemon, all of Serena's, all of Clement's, and Bonnie's Pokemon. Gained bonds with all of them. Friends. Gained bonds with Ash, Clement, Serena, Bonnie. Gained friendship with all of them. Gained rivals with Sceptile and Charizard. Has gained friendships with Shota and Alon because of it. So he has a family now. He's got ultimate trust in Ash. Regardless of if Ash wins or loses, they're in it for the long haul, right? Well, until this episode. He's gained all of this. And he's a hero. Look at what Froakie, the lonely Froakie who wouldn't cooperate with anybody, has become. The team-worked Greninja, who's willing to work with an entire cast. Now he's leaving. The exact same way Froakie left those other trainers. But he's not leaving as a Froakie who won't cooperate. He's leaving as a Greninja, willing to become the hero that he wanted to be as a Froakie. He's leaving. Only this time he's leaving as a hero, not as a spoiled, entitled brat. Look at what has happened. There's something in narrative writing that's known as it's a big character development moment known as what's it called? I can't believe I'm blanking out right now. It's known as a growth similarity move. This is when the character does the exact same thing they did at the start of the story, at the end of the story, only this time they've done much better. I'm going to spoil No Way Home for a second, unfortunately, so I'm sorry if you guys haven't watched that movie yet, but it's been out for a while. But spoiler alert, and the only reason I'm spoiling it is because at this point, we've already seen, it's integral, and it's the most recent example I can think of. Remember how at the start of this, with Spider-Man's whole thing, he comes up as this cocky-ass kid who has the world under his hands. He's able to help out Iron Man in Civil War. He gets the fancy suits. He gets to fight alongside the Avengers. He gets all this clout. He gets everybody praising and loving him. And then we get to No Way Home, and no one knows who he is. He's basically left everything. But he made those sacrifices so that he can grow as a character. Because the same Peter Parker that wanted everything is now the Peter Parker who's lost everything. But he lost everything under the pretense that he's gained so much as a character. So he loses. So at the start of the series, he's swinging around as Spider-Man, but he's got his cock all out. He's the shit. He thinks he's better than everything. He steals Captain America's shield. He's the hot shit. But look at what happens when he leaves. He leaves by swinging around as Spider-Man, just like what he started as, only this time he's lost a lot. But he's gained so much humility. He's gained maturity. He's gained respect from the audience mostly, because nobody knows who the fuck he is. But that's what happened. He's introduced and left. He's swinging in as Spider-Man as a cocky ass hero kid. He's swinging in as Spider-Man at the end of this as a mature hero who's understood what losses and sacrifice are. And that's what happens here. Froakie leaves the trainers as the outcast starter Pokemon of Kalos who won't cooperate with anybody, and leaves as the hero that everyone looks up to. This is the third narrative reason that I have brought to the scene. This is character development. This is a story. People don't like this because this unfortunately translates to, oh, the very character that did so much to affect me as a person is now leaving for no other reason to fulfill somebody else's work. But Greninja wants to help people. That's always been his character. From episode 3, we see that from episode 1. Remember, Greninja's first action as a Froakie is to save Pikachu from getting hit by Team Rocket after it used the Electro Ball mirror move thing. Mirror coat, not mirror move, mirror coat. That's his first action. That's his first action, is to sacrifice himself to save Pikachu. His heart has always been in the right place. He's always just felt that he had a need for power. He needs to get stronger. in order to be the type of hero that he wants to be. Now he has the power. Zygarde outright says it. You have the power to do it. He has the power to be a hero. Ash wants him to be that very thing he wants to be, and thus he must let Greninja go. Narratively, this is the only way this would work. If Ash had just kept Greninja in his back pocket and gave it to Professor Oak, yeah, we would still have Greninja as a viable option for Ash to use for the future, but we wouldn't have that satisfaction of Greninja saving the lives that he saves in the Kalos region. I think people tend to forget, when people watch episode 120, when people watch episode 139, I think what they see is that Greninja is leaving. But they don't see the idea that he's leaving under the context that he's a hero of Kalos, which is the very thing Olympia says he's going to be in episode 92. So when that happens, I think what people end up seeing and why people hate Greninja so much at this point, from what we see from Twitter, people see the loss and the leaving. They don't see the acceptance and the acceptance and the legacy. That's what's being painted here. It's not even the fact that he's gonna go fight a bullshit ass bunch of vines that suddenly show up in Kalos. Yeah, that whole thing was rushly written. That's not the point though. The point, the overarching point, is that the writers had made very close sure that Greninja's losing under the that Greninja's leaving under the pretense that it's helping other people out. That's how they made Greninja leave. They wanted Greninja to leave under the mindset that it is doing a job to help other people. That it's doing the very thing that it wanted to do as a Froakie. When it jumped in front of that giant Electro Ball and saved Pikachu from getting hit. They wanted it to leave under the mindset that it's helping other people. That it's able to be a team player. That it's able to gain everything from Ash that's allowed it to be a defender. We see hints of this with Goomy. Goomy comes in as a cowardly Pokemon that can't do shit for real. And look how it leaves as a defender of the Oasis. A lot of people focus on the loss that it has with Bisharp because it helps Ash's little imaginary power scale ranking system that anime fans have so damn much. But that's not the point. The fact that Goodra was willing to fill in that 6th spot means that its bond that it has with Ash shows that it's willing to help Ash in any situation. Ash would have looked like a complete idiot going into a 6v6 fight with only 5 Pokemon. It came in as a placeholder in order to assist Ash. In order to help Ash in the very way that Ash helped it. It owed Ash. It doesn't necessarily mean he had to perform at his optimal. He's a defender. He's not a battler. He wants to protect people. He does not fight for the sport of it. He was helping Ash. But we're not talking about Goodra right now. I'm just using Goodra as a bounce off point to show that Ash's influences have allowed Pokemon to become better so that they can be better Pokemon for when they go out. A lot of the time in the OG series and earlier when Ash released Pokemon, he mostly released them so they could just be happy. It was pretty much selfless reasons, but it was so they can be happy. The only time he really does something similar to this is when he releases Pidgeot, so that it can defend all the other Pidgeys and Pidgeotos in the trees. And that's pretty much what we get after that, which is a very fast pace. And obviously it's done haphazardly because we don't see a lot of Pidgeotto moments in the series. Essentially, this is what happens when you do the series correctly. Greninja's, him leaving to date to me feels like the best release that Pokemon has in terms of releasing a Pokemon, because it's released under the mindset that he's become the polar opposite of what he was, but still shares a similar value. The value being is that now he's not the lowly hero that nobody wants. He's the hero that everybody needs and receives, because now his mindset has become, hey, I am no longer the selfish Pokemon that has the one-track mind of only getting stronger so that I can protect people. Now I can protect people under the mindset and under the premise that I've gained such close bonds with so many people, including Ash, especially Ash, that I'm able to humble myself and become better because I've humbled myself. And Ash gets this lesson too. Ash has humbled himself, and guess what happens in Sun and Moon? He wins the league. Yeah, he wins the league in the most BS fight that I've ever seen in my goddamn life, but he wins. And we see this humbling of yourself. And honestly, this isn't a lesson that just happens in X and Y. I believe this is a lesson that should probably happen just within the community in general. I see so many back and forths over what we see that we never stop and look at what we gain, myself included. I hate losing. Like we've already established that as a streamer, when I stream and play games, defeat to me is an ultimate source of failure in my eyes. But even when we sit here now, I've got like, and I'm not bragging about myself, I'm just pointing out what I see. I've got like 590 followers. That means 590 people, while not a lot, shows that I've grown so much since the first time that I've streamed and didn't have any followers. I had 0 at one point, and now we're at 590. 10 more and that's 600. 400 more and that's 1,000. So instead of, like, as a community, instead of always focusing, and Zach said this one time when he talked about, like, his reviews on certain series, more specifically Journeys. Instead of focusing on the things that are bad or negative and that we don't have, we should focus on the things that make something great. Which is good. It has some counterpoints to it when it comes to, reviewing a series, because everything has its good and bads. But if we can take what we want out of that, as if we look into the reasons that, if we look into what we gained before and after us losing and use that, maybe that would be a much better mindset than us taking into account everything we've lost, or the 1 or 2 times that we've lost. Because whether I win or lose, or whether anybody just in this chat, in the community, in the world, winning sucks, and it's usually the most noticed, especially during crucial times. You want to win badly because it can prove to others that you're competent, that you're validated, that you're worth something. But then when you look back at everything you've done up to this point, look at the value you brought to other people around you. Look at the value and growth that you've had to everyone who has watched you along the way, who has supported you along the way, who has helped you. This channel could be an example of that, where this channel started as nothing. It started as pretty much this. This is how the channel started. Because I didn't have a way to, I didn't have a capture card. I didn't have a hypercam. Not a hypercam. I didn't have a webcam. I didn't have anything. I was doing streams off the PlayStation streaming system. And look where we've come. We got our own logo. We've got overlays provided by Donnie, Azure Samurai, and several other talented people who have watched me and seen my progress. We've gotten our own professional mic. We've gotten our own mic. We've gotten various webcams, a headset, soundproof foam in the back, LED lights. And I'm not trying to make this about me. I'm using me as an example because I'm the only one I can think of right now. People don't often see the victories we've gained along the way towards getting to where we are and how we leave out. And I think that is the primary reason why people hate Greninja, is because unfortunately the idea of Greninja brought a hope of winning. But the hope of winning ends up fading away when obviously the result isn't that it's a win. Unfortunately though, within that loss, we've gained so much. What we've gained before and after that loss is so much more important. Alon even outright says it to Ash, I can never beat you, because Alon already realizes that yes, he won, but he won under the mindset of having to go through it with power. I have to get stronger. I have to win. I have to. The same shit that Ash was going through. It's only after he ends up losing, it's only after Alon realizes that he's the reason that this whole plan starts off in the first place. And you want to know what's really funny? Remember what I said about that depression thing with Ash? Like if we took episode 121 out, Ash would have been unable to save everybody in the Kalos region because he wouldn't have had the mindset to keep going after that and fight off Lysander. Guess what Alon winds up doing for the first half of that Lysander confrontation? What is he doing? He's sitting down. He's punching the ground. His face is sad. Isn't it a little funny how my example is shown visually through Alon? Amazing how that happens, right? Isn't it weird? Isn't that weird how that happened? And guess who ends up picking Alon back up? Ash. He has an influence on everyone in the series. Whether they beat him or he beats them, Ash wins in this situation. Not during the results of the battle. Ash lost the battle, but he won the hearts of everybody. He won the hearts of everyone. Alon was pushing people away. He pushed Sycamore away at the beginning of the league. You can see it. He pushes Madden away. He pushes everyone away. Alon winds up with nothing. Ash has to bring him back in. He gains Sycamore's respect again. He gains Marin back. He gets Chespy back. He's got his own group, his own family, his own people that he reaches out to. And is able to meet all the people that are influenced by Ash. That moment where all the gym leaders and Ash's friends fight off against Megalith Zygarde is a perfect moment because it shows everyone Ash has influenced. And guess what happens at the very end of the series? To each their own journey, or what does it say? Shit, I can't remember the final title card. To everyone their own journey or something like that. I gotta read it. It's been a while since I actually read that final title card. And to our own way. That's what it is. And to our own way. And to our own way. Why is that important? Because Ash has had so much influence on everyone that they're now able to pick themselves up and do the things that they're able to do. We never see this in any other series where they played the ending theme, they played the opening theme, the V-Volt theme, and when they play the V-Volt theme, guess what happens? We see Shota is studying with Steven Stone. We see all the other gym leaders doing their own thing. We see Trevor, Tyrano, and Shauna like traveling on their own in the woods. We see Alon is with Madden and they're trying to rediscover Mega Evolution without using their, while Alon tries to get his own Keystone. We get to see everyone like do and develop themselves after the fact. This is the reason why I love this series so much. And this is the impact that Ash has on everyone. So the reason that unfortunately people hate Greninja, to me, is a faulty point. Yes, he loses one little punk ass Pokemon battle that puts Ash up on a ranking on a title card and a thing. And runner-up isn't even bad. If I were to enter a Pokemon VGC tournament right now, and it said that I'm runner-up in the finals of a nationals tournament, you know how fucking crazy I would be right now? That's amazing. That's awesome. That's a good thing. Yeah, I didn't win the whole goddamn thing, but it's still good to see that I went that far. But people are so focused on the fact that he lost at one time because people have always been focused on like the losses, which I find ironic because the overarching lesson is supposed to be it's not that you lose, it's who you are after you lose. It's not the fact that Greninja ended up losing, or leaving Ash and he got released. Because honestly, really think about it. Would you rather if Greninja just sat around in Professor Oak's laboratory or be in the Kalos region, making an actual difference. The same difference that Ash made when he landed on the Kalos region and fell on his fucking butt after he got off the plane. The point being is that, influence, context, and the overarching narrative and legacy that Greninja has is a far more important factor than him losing that one time in that one Pokemon battle that was very important. It's the legacy, the story Greninja makes. People didn't listen or skipped out on episodes 92 and 121 when they saw this. They had to have. It's the only explanation. Because they didn't stop and realize that what Olympia meant was that Greninja was going to leave as a hero. Now I'm going to ask the chat this question and wait for an answer. When Olympia said that, do you honestly believe that Greninja left as the hero of Kalos, or would you rather have preferred him be sitting around in Oak's lab making little to no difference to anyone? Did he leave as a hero? Did he leave as someone who sat and fought Megalith Zygarde and fought off against these vines to make an actual difference? What did he leave as? And that will be the answer that we stick with. Not this, he lost in that one sporting event that one time. This is what people should be paying attention to. I think the problem that we've always sat. Well, I'll give a minute so that you guys can say their thing, and then I'll obviously get back into it. And while you answer this, while you guys answer this, I'll point this out. Oh yeah, I could have made a poll for that. Yeah, I want you guys to type it though. I don't want this to be regulated to just a click of a button. I want this to be something you guys have to stop, think, and type about. I want that. I want to see that. Because that's what we miss out on a lot. I was very upset when Ash lost against Alon in the Kalos League the first time. But this is the me that's taken some time to stop and think about it. And you want to know what really allowed me to stop and think about this? I do. I, as a streamer, have the exact same problem that the overarching narrative was. I have fought so hard to gain you guys as followers and reach out and entertain the masses so that I can make an impact and become somebody worth it. So I got so fixated in numbers. Oh, I need more followers. I need more attention. I need more people to watch my program, my platform. I need more fans. I need this. I need that. And if I'm not doing the same numbers as these female e-streamers or VTubers or all these other people who have got a million, who have got thousands of followers and subscribers just by doing the same thing that I'm doing, but they get like better breaks than I do, or lucky breaks, or the universe works in their favor, then I feel like a failure. That I constantly put my low 590 number up to a bunch of people who have over 10K and 40K and all of that, and I stop and like wallow in this depression. And then I stop and realize, wait a minute. It's not the fact that I am this low. It's the fact that I keep fighting and I'm consistent and I tried my hardest to keep streaming and providing entertainment for people. That's important. The numbers don't matter. The comparisons don't matter. None of that matters. The losses I've taken don't matter. It's whether or not I'm willing to continue forward. So if this applies in real life, why can't it apply in the world of fiction that takes place here? You're only focusing on the fact that Greninja lost, But what about all the training he's had up to this point? What about the bonds he's gained with the other people? People completely erase this out of the narrative. And yes, I know. The narrative has pushed Ash to win a lot. But I think that was also the point. He even says it at the end of his fight. When Ash tells the other people, I'm sorry I let you guys down. And everybody else says, that's okay. It was a great fight. You did a great job showing yourself off. And it's very shown that you love Pokemon and that you did your best that you can do. That's all we've ever asked of Ash, is to do the best he can do. Nobody ever told him he has to win. He told himself that. He's the only one who's been in his head about that. But no one has ever put a gun up to his head and go, win, Ash, or we'll all lose faith in you. Win, Ash, or we're never going to talk to you ever again. Win, Ash, or we're not going to want to be a part of you. Everyone looks up to Ash, but that doesn't mean they're entitled to Ash's victories. That's no fair to them, and it's definitely no fair to Ash. He did the best he can do. And that's not me trying to put a pity party up. I'm simply pointing out what the narrative's pointing out. That Ash is disappointed that he let everyone down, but the characters have grown stronger because of his influence. It's not his win or loss that they care about. It's the fact that he's able to touch the lives of everybody that's been around him that's important. And I think people, the audience mostly, miss and lose sight of that. And then got upset when Greninja left. But unfortunately, I made this comment about Journeys a bunch of times where I don't want certain characters to come back to Journeys because it wouldn't be narratively correct. I don't want Greninja to come back. I don't want Serena to come back. I don't want these characters to come back because their stories end well. And I would much rather their stories have a good ending than a bad continuation. Why bring Greninja back? There's no point. There's literally no point. There's not a point in the world to do it. His arc ends there as the hero that left a trainer, not because the trainer was incompetent, but because the trainer gave him so much. Like, that's the point. People are so butthurt about the fact that Greninja left and got released, but they're not paying attention to the fact that when we last saw Greninja as a Froakie, the first time, he left trainers just like he's leaving Ash, but he left as a brat. Someone who wasn't willing to cope with humbling himself. And humbling yourself is the biggest wall we've always have to climb, but because we all have to stop and admit to ourselves that we aren't perfect. We can't do everything. We can only do so much as human beings. That's it. That's all we ever expected to do. That's all we ever can do. But it's what we do with the potential we have is what makes us true winners. Not the fact that we lost that one time, that made us really, really sad. It's the impact. Froakie left trainers because he sucked and was incompetent. And, not incompetent, because he thought the trainers sucked and were incompetent. And he didn't want to be a team player. He didn't have anything. He was lonely. He leaves Ash, but not under that premise. He leaves Ash as a hero. As someone who's humbled himself. As someone who realized what it's like to have a family, a friend, a bond, a phenomenon. But I've been talking too damn much, so it's time for me to end the stream. Sorry, I may do like a follow-up to that. I don't know. I'll make sure to definitely repost this one on YouTube at some point. I just have to skim through everything to make sure everything's correct. That way you guys aren't sitting through the same amount of time. But that's pretty much I don't know if I answered LOL's question at all. I don't even know if I did anything to LOL's question. But I feel like since this was a Twitter topic that was very popular, I wanted to try my best to analyze it from start to finish and see if I can give some insight as to what exactly happened. And I don't know if I did my job correctly, LOL. LOL, I don't even know if you stuck around long enough to watch it. But for those of y'all who did watch it from start and finish, thank you so much. This is pretty much all I've got on the topic. I don't know, again, if I've covered anything, if there's anything I missed out, if there's anything people want to add. And normally this would be the part where I have people add stuff, but I've ran the time too much, and I may do like a follow-up or something. I don't know. But this is tackling a series that already ended versus a series that's still ongoing, so there's more to talk about because we have context. It all ended. Whereas here, the context, like later in Journeys, the context isn't over. So much can change. But I don't know if I did my job correctly. I don't know if I did it any justice. I don't know what I've done. I've done what I can. That's pretty much all the argument I have is I've done what I can to help shed some light on the issue. And I want to tell myself I believe I've done the most I can to help answer this question with a little bit of like brevity. So let me read the rest of these. Do you think the league wasn't away? Do you think if the league wasn't always the big climax of a Pokemon season, people might not have made this a big deal? Like if the league never happened in the middle of the season. Yeah, that actually is a good point, Midnight. Like, yeah, I can see that. Also, what's up, Midnight? I feel like, Midnight, you've asked me this question before. I'm having real deja vu about it. No XY returns, please. Their stories are done. Yeah, YOLO. Fox said that. Not only butthurt, but the fandom has this unhealthy obsession of projecting themselves onto the desires of the series and the characters. Yeah. And I had to stop and realize that, too. We all are going to have our Greninja losing the Charizard moment. But it's how you carry yourself afterwards that makes or breaks you as a person. And I don't know if you all are satisfied with my answer. Because this is the answer I've got. And I know it took me 2 hours to answer this goddamn question, which essentially was translated to a tweet. But I don't know if this gave some good insight or gained any, like, I don't want to say, like, I don't know if this is an acceptable enough answer to hold its own in a debate. Only because this is an answer I'm giving based off of everything I know about the series that I like. So obviously there may have been some bias curves in there. But I'm taking what I interpreted and I'm using what was given in the episode to back up my claims rather than just saying, oh, he was just so cool and people just need to accept that people lose and blah, blah, blah. I didn't pass it off as like a Ash lost and he tried his best and it should be enough and you should just accept it and you people are just mean for the sake of being mean. I didn't want to give it that answer. I wanted to give it an answer that was backed up by some level of narrative, like, girth. No pun intended. Some point of narrative, like, there had to be some factual narrative clues in there to help back up my statements rather than just I like this character and I very much would like this character to not be hated on anymore because of that one thing that happened that one time. No, I tried my best to utilize the source that I'm given and flesh out the narratives in order to give a legit reason rather than just some gushy fan reason that seems like I'm just fanning over the series and anything outside of that is against my opinions and you should shut up because you're a loser on Twitter. I very much was trying to give some wording to this to make it feel like something that actually holds weight long after I'm dead. But yeah, so you made a lot of good points, good answer. You made me realize the Ash's effect on Greninja. Amazing insight, but this question, I don't think there's even an answer for this type of question, good or bad, right or wrong. It's all personal, but hating is a strong word to use even for a character and their growth arc. You did a great job, very objective and straight to the point. Okay, but yeah, that's all I got. That's what I got. That's my insight. Obviously, not even just the series has changed a lot since then, because X and Y is 2 series old at this point. That means it's about what, 6, 7 years old? It's like 8 years old now, right? It's like 7 or 8. I don't fucking know. Point is, a lot of time has passed. I don't have an opinion. I haven't watched Pokemon episodes, but yeah, with that being said, the community's changed a lot. 2 series have passed since we went through this moment. And obviously, because 2 series have passed since then, a lot of things have changed between fans. Maybe you have changed as a person. Who knows? Maybe you haven't. Maybe hopefully the community changes again. Maybe they watch this video one day and maybe it changes a lot of heads. Who knows? We don't actually know. But for now, I want to say this has been my thoughts on the matter as of now. And they, much like your thoughts, my thoughts are subject to change. You might see me a year from now and be like, it's bullshit. Greninja's a punk-ass frog that lost to Charizard. And honestly, Ash was supposed to win every goddamn thing. So, I don't know. But the point being is that that's what we got. I appreciate everybody for sticking around and listening. And I'll definitely make sure that this one gets uploaded to YouTube as soon as possible. Just for the idea that people can then see it. And when they see it, hopefully that leads to some level of eye-opening that allows for, you know, maybe a chance to help people learn more. I don't even necessarily think you have to agree or disagree with what I'm saying, but if you learn something, that's a win to me. It means that you're growing as a person, and that's always good. So, with that being said, let's get into an advertisement, and then let's go ahead and rate, and let's get the hell up out of here. Enjoy your New Year's Day, by the way. Go have a drink. Go hang out with family and friends. And remember, it's not the losses you take, it's the journey you make.